Hey, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today as we jump back into one of the Psalms, one of the verses in one of the Psalms, Psalm 16, verse 11. And it says this: You reveal the path of life to me. In your presence is abundant joy. In your right hand are eternal pleasures. One of the things that I think most of our parents, because um, it has a long standing in advice that parents, grandparents gave children through for many years. And one of their favorite sayings is, "You can't trust your feelings." And I know I can recall it to this very day. I can recall that warning and um, a warning that uh, cautions us about relying on our emotions. They would say something like that: you can't trust your feelings. You can't trust your feelings is what would offer. And they would offer something like, well, what you really want are the facts. Facts are your friends. Feelings can change on you. Never trust your feelings. Uh, as I said, um, so many raised on that statement, but I have a tendency to believe perhaps that it needs to be tempered just a little bit. And it's because of the word never. I think that's the word there that I stumble over. Because peace, think about peace for a moment. And since peace, which is an emotion, of course, is a part of this affirmation within us that we have, that God gives us, that allows us that emotion, that feeling, when we're walking in His will. And that's key. When we are in the center of His will, well, you and I better trust it. We're instructed to let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Paul writing to the church at Colossae, chapter 3 and verse 15. So we certainly must give peace its due. Tradition also says, let your conscience be your guide. Well, as far as that one is concerned, it all depends on the condition of your conscience. Sometimes one's conscience is reliable, sometimes not. I see conscience as kind of like a compass. If a compass is faulty, I'm going to get lost. A conscience gets its signal. Conscience gets its signals from the heart, and that particular heart can be dulled in some way. It can be hardened. That's in Scripture, or it can be calloused. And even further than that, then a conscience can be overly sensitive and can even um, drive one to do things that they never even thought about doing. It can drive someone mad. In order for one's conscience to be a good guide, one that the Spirit can direct, it needs to be healthy, it needs to be sensitive, and it needs to be capable of getting God's measure and truth. Along with all of this, it's a good time to have a reminder, too, that the message of Christ, of course, in our lives is not without emotions in itself. When you realize the true condition of the heart without God, and you ponder the impact of your sinfulness, my sinfulness, your sinfulness, there's an emotional reaction. We speak this to God. We speak it to ourselves. We speak it to God. I have, when we speak to God, I have offended you. I have sinned because of my sin. I've grieved the heart of God. I've driven, I have crucified Christ all over again. I've driven nails into his hands with my sins. And indeed, that was done initially as well. when the truth of when the truth of forgiveness and grace and God's overwhelming love pour over us, it can't help but have us feel emotional. When you realize that God has reserved a home in heaven for you, and when I realize that, and I realize as we spoke of this morning in our Bible study time, what Paul wrote to the church at Rome, chapter 5, verse 8, while we were still sinners, while I was still a sinner, Christ died for me. And he knew my name. He knew my name before time ever began. And that is true for you as well. When I realize that all that's taken place and he still has made a home in heaven for me, then when I was running the opposite direction, he stopped me. He turned me around in grace and he brought me to himself. That too brings an emotional response. All of these things bring out our emotions, and we cannot deny those things. God gave them to us. We should not be afraid of them. We need to let them flow. And in doing that, then most of all, allow your heart to show through in your life, in your family, in your friends, in your neighbors, those you're close to, your church family. Exercise them is the best thing we do, because if you refuse to open up and to allow the full prism of God's love to invade you and his truth to shine through your life, you'll miss so very much of the color that he has to offer through that prism. So I pray that you're open today with a little bit of a different twist on some old sayings. Open today to allow God to work through your emotions and in that way show you his grace so that you can do likewise with those around you. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon if it's God's will. Remember, he loves you, and so do I.